many years, 20-plus years at least, on a consistent basis, and we've received this grant in some form or another since that time, and they're offering it once again.
Thank you. Is this assignment actually utilized in Keene, or is this?
It actually is. The task force has 4 teams assigned throughout the state. Our detective is assigned to the western team. It's approximately 6 members on that team currently, and I can tell you, based upon last year's facts, their annual report, that the western team was the busiest team with the most arrests, the most investigations, the most seizures.
Could we be optimistic that this will work towards the heroin issue?
It is working towards the heroin issue. I can tell you, they're reporting to us that approximately 95% of their cases now are heroin or opioid related. So they are making a lot of arrests and culminating a lot of investigations relative to that.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah, Councilor Clark.
Ken, is this grant anticipated when you put together your budget, or is this not anticipated?
It's not anticipated as part of the budget. We're not sure year to year based on how the funding goes. This is a Department of Justice grant, Bureau of Justice Assistance, that gets funneled through the New Hampshire Attorney General's office, and there's no guarantee one year to the next whether or not we can get it.
Anything further from the public? Yes, sir.
Garrett Ian, 75 Leverett Street. I would just be critical of activities by the Drug Task Force in actually antagonizing the drug problem that we have here in Keene. My issue is, in the past, a very well-publicized case of Rich Paul being arrested. He was someone who was making cannabis available to people, and someone who was arrested for distribution of heroin was used to bust somebody for cannabis. Now, this was the New Hampshire Drug Task Force utilizing the Keene Police, also in association with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. I'm not exactly sure why all of those parties were involved in a cannabis case. However, that I think was a very good example of misused resources, because it's convenient, I'd say, to go after drug cases. We have an issue, obviously, with heroin here in Keene, all over the country, and addressing it by the enforcement of drug laws is really just creating market opportunities on the streets. It's known that people are, there's always going to be a demand for it, so I think addressing the, meeting the demand in a safe and reasonable way, as opposed to trying to pretend the problem remains a criminal one instead of a medical one, I'd say is an issue. So I'd be just skeptical of the grant and how it's being used, and I'd like to see more accountability with how exactly Drug Task Force and police resources are being used.
Thank you. Anything further? Yes.
Chief, since it's Department of Justice money, you have to justify this book to the state, and the state in turn has to justify all the uses and implementation of this, correct?
Correct. It's actually managed through the New Hampshire Attorney General's Drug Task Force, and they have to justify it to the Attorney General, who then has to justify their expenditures based upon their activity to the Department of Justice for the United States. So, yeah, there's accountability and there's accounting all along the way.
Thank you.
Anything further? A motion, please.
Move that the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept a $30,000 grant from the New Hampshire Department of Justice to offset costs associated with personnel assigned to the New Hampshire Attorney General's Drug Task Force.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Anything further? All in favor? Thank you. Next item on our agenda, someone is representing the Youth Services. This is funding for Youth Services programs.
Good evening, Beth Fox, Assistant City Manager, Human Resources Director, Human and Youth Services Director. I'm here tonight requesting that the council authorize the city manager to accept funding from 2 programs. One is the Juvenile Court Diversion Program, JCC, and the other program is the CHINS program. Excuse me, the other program is the, formerly known as the CHINS program. It's now called the Adolescent Brief Intervention Program. An acronym that isn't quite as easy as CHINS, unfortunately. The county has funded both these programs for a long period of time through the county budget. It was approved in their 2014 allocation. These funds allow the city's youth services manager to provide services to other youth in the region who go through the area court and require intervention.
Questions? Committee? Public? Thank you. Any motion?
It says that this county money is valuable because it allows these programs to provide service to youth and families that reside outside of the city of Keene but live in the jurisdiction of the court. So the court directs certain services, but those services are only available in Keene. So if you have,
Yes,
Okay.
we provide, there isn't another program, you know, the smaller communities don't have those services within their arsenal. So the county helps fund our provision of those services.
since we have a lot of problems, what happens when the court directive exceeds this county allocation? Where does the extra funding come from?
I mean, this is a revenue that's calculated into the city budget. We've included these revenues in the estimates in developing the budget, so they, you know, they, to a certain extent, offset the cost of operating the youth services programming. There isn't a per client charge, and the caseload can vary from year to year, so it'll be difficult, I think, to administer it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Motion, please.
Move that the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommend the City Council authorize the city manager to do all things necessary to accept and administer funds provided by Cheshire County for youth services programs.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Anything further? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Next item, the police chief is back. This is regarding radiological and emergency response plan grant.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes.
This is related to Vermont Yankee, and this is an annual grant that we receive as the host community for an emergency out of Vermont Yankee. And it is in the amount of $50,763. And this is a grant from the state of New Hampshire Department of Safety, Homeland Security and Emergency Management. These funds help cover costs associated with exercises with running the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center here in the city of Keene, directly related to emergencies that might arise out of Vermont Yankee. We conduct exercises annually. It also helps purchase equipment such as portable radios, technology, communications equipment, and other consumables such as office supplies, printer ink, and stuff like that, that we would utilize during these exercises for Vermont Yankee, and therefore they don't come out of the taxpayer coffers here in the city of Keene.
Sounds good. Questions? Committee? Public? Therefore.
Move that the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept the fiscal year 15 grant from the state of New Hampshire Department of Safety, Homeland Security, and Emergency Management in the amount of $50,763.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there anything further? Seeing none, all in favor? We are unanimous. Thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda, this is item 6, for those that are following along at home. It's a memorandum from the Highway Superintendent, Mr. Byrne. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, Councilors. Bill Burns, Superintendent, Keene Highway Division. I'm here before you tonight to request that you authorize the city manager, give him the opportunity or the ability to amend his drain cleaning contract with the Hardigan Drain Cleaning Company. The reason we're asking for this is that we want to revisit the section of the city that we started cleaning 3 years ago to perform routine drain maintenance. Catch basins, our drain system, it's basically, historically, it's been forgotten infrastructure. This Department of Public Works is no longer looking at it that way. So 3 years ago, we implemented a citywide drain clean and line flushing program. Upon review and assessment by the division, we found that after in about a 3-year period, it's time to go back and revisit the first section that you cleaned 3 years ago. And this will be a routine cyclical performance, routine maintenance. The idea behind this is, right now, in the section that we did 3 years ago, there's material in the sump of the basin. Now that's the area about between 1 foot and 2 feet below the drain pipes, with pipes come in, pipes go out. That collects a little debris and things like that, and allows it to stay there stored before it gets up to the level of the pipe and could hinder drainage. So we want to go back and revisit those areas and clean those sumps now before that material can get into the drain lines and prohibit proper drain flow with the drainage system.
Makes sense. The original contract, by the notes, it was a 4-year contract, a total of $172,365. So this is looking to add an additional $37,500.
Correct.
I think that's a pretty wise idea to keep the drains flowing. Questions? Yep.
I'll just make a comment. The people in the Grove and Foster and Adams, they really appreciate you cleaning out the drains.
It's good to hear. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Talking about using carryover funds,
Yes.
and that means what?
Carryover are funds that were unspent from previous fiscal year. So we request through finance for those carryover funds to perform this drainage work.
Would that be unspent from other contracts? Is that how that-
Possibly. I don't know the exact source where it came from.
Are you interested, concerned?
Oh, yeah.
That's,
Well, no, as to where it's coming from?
yeah.
Oh, I understand
Yeah, I
that.
don't.
But my follow-up is that I'm concerned about us, city council, spending money that we raised last year for other purposes and not giving it back to the taxpayers. So, there's a couple other items tonight that'll probably be
Same question.
same question, same situation. I think the project is perfect. It's something that should be done. Something we ought to budget for. But I think we spend too much of last year's money every single year. And if we are fortunate enough to have a surplus, then we ought to give it back to the taxpayers by either raising it in the following year or using it to reduce the rate so that other projects can come forward.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
The, going where Tom is already headed, this is the first time that I can remember that it talked about carryover funds. Every other project would be like, we had this project for $1.2 million, we may have bonded, but there was $40,000 left, so we were doing a transfer. I don't think I've ever heard the term carryover funds, because I think that tends to bring up, once the budget year is over, that all goes into, unallocated fund balance. And so I would feel a heck of a lot more comfortable if this $37,000 was coming out of unallocated fund balance or projected surplus for this year, instead of using the term carryover funds, because I don't know how we get to go back or something on books that have already been closed out.
If I may add, what the division's plans are, this upcoming CIP program is to request funding for this annual cyclical maintenance. But that's the upcoming year, we want to address it this year.
Just to translate something for you. The discussion really is not about the item itself, it's more the bookkeeping and the
Yes, that's
financial. all
True
of the
finance,
parts.
that's above me.
Yeah. You do a good job with the drains. It's
Thank
good.
you.
And it-
Well, I was going to ask you whether or not this was in the CIP for this year, or if it's something that we just do every year without adding it to the capital
Well,
improvement plan.
We're going to request in the upcoming capital improvement plan funds for this annual maintenance.
But we have it in the past.
Correct. We just initiated this drain cleaning program 3 years ago. We're going into the fourth year. Well, we will be going into the fourth year next year, but we're in our third now, the citywide drain cleaning. It's a new program we initiated after we realized that drainage, no one thinks of it until there's an issue.
This was a
The roads
capital
and things.
improvements program 3-4 years ago.
Excuse me?
I believe this was a capital improvements
Yes.
program years ago, and I think that sort of answers, no? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Bart,
Corporal,
give
Public
it-
Works Director.
Yes.
This program has been a capital improvement program. It was, as the Highway Superintendent mentioned, it was started about 3 years ago. What they're requesting is just to do basically additional work.
Yeah.
And then again, as he mentioned, we will be continuing to ask as part of the upcoming program to continue what we're doing. So it's a program that has been in the works, has existed. This is just requesting to be able to do additional work with some funding that remained at 13-14.
Gotcha, thank you. Anything further? Public? You go for a motion, or you?
Should be right there. Move that the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to amend the contract for Hardin Drain Cleaning Company to perform additional drain cleaning and line flushing using carryover funds of $37,500 from fiscal year 13-14 budget. The original 4-year contract amount was for $172,365. The amended 4-year contract total will be $209,865.
Second, please. Motion's been made and seconded. Anything further? All in favor? All opposed? We are not unanimous. We are 3-1. But
Thank you.
This does go forward with a positive recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, Assistant Public Works Director is coming forward.